We can just as well face it. We are all going to die one day, and our life force will leave the body. So how do we carry the information with us and remember it the next time we reincarnate? What is the use in learning all these things if we are to forget it in the amnesia implant station? We'll see if we can answer these questions to some extent in this section. In the New Age and spiritual movement, people often think we need to reincarnate to eventually evolve to the next level, i.e. the next density or dimension. They believe that we have a lesson or two to learn each lifetime, and it builds up and we become wiser and wiser. The between lives area blah then becomes a resort where you rest in between incarnation and mingle and have a happy reunion with dead relatives. Although there seems to be some truth in this, it's not at all the purpose with reincarnation and the BLA. It's all set up to trap us, like we have discussed in these papers. We don't even necessarily get wiser by accumulating life events that carry over, because we usually don't remember them. Instead they become unresolved and unfinished business, which build up ridges of energy around our light body, just to transfer over to the next physical body, which in its turn carries genetic memories from the bloodline, including unresolved issues as well. This creates inner conflicts in individuals who find themselves having issues in the present lifetime, which they can't explain where they come from. Of course, resolved problems and carried over completed learning lessons can be relatively helpful and in a sense helps the person evolve under the circumstances of our earthly existences. But overall, reincarnation is severely halting the evolution of a being who could, if amnesia hadn't been implemented on them, had learned their lesson many times faster. But aside from these arguments, it's all a trap and can't be beneficial for any of us. However, the only reason the Sirians can keep us trapped in their system, which does not only include the earthly system, but expands out to include the afterlife as well, because we are ignorant of what they're doing. Once we are aware, their system falls apart and can no longer be sustained. And they can't keep us trapped here, either, if we refuse to do what they want us to do. When we die, one of several things, or a mix of them, can happen to an individual. One scenario is that the deceased is being helped with the crossover by their so-called spirit guide, or guides, who lead them to the tunnel, which sucks them into the light. The deceased often feels joy and increased awareness during this process, relieved from not having the physical body with all its programming to carry around anymore. On the other side of the tunnel awaits them either deceased friends and relatives, or Jesus, who will carry them further to heaven. Others, on rare occasion, have told a darker story about going to hell, seeing demons and dark spirits. It seems pretty much that people go where their belief system take them. If they have very strong religious beliefs, for example, they may go to a place that corresponds to that. In part, they make it up themselves, but there are versions of the afterlife which already corresponds with Jesus, the devil, Mother Mary, or whatever it may be. Still, it's only make-believe, and the person ends up being recycled anyway. Although exactly where people go after body death may differ, they all have one thing in common, the tunnel, leading to a bright light on the other side. The Sirians want everybody to go through the tunnel. Whatever people want to be or do, and whom they want to meet, can to a certain degree be arranged, but the common denominator is the tunnel. Few are those, of all humans who have died over and over again, who escape the tunnel. Even if no spirit guide is there to greet them, and they are all alone, they almost always find their way to the tunnel. Only times I know of that they don't is when they don't realize they are dead and hover around the earth plane in the astral, confused and lonely. Others don't want to leave, because they hang on to something, be it friends, relatives, or material things, they don't want to let go. But in the end, whether it takes a week in our terms or 1,000 years, the spirit sooner or later finds her way to the tunnel, and is absorbed by the light. Why is that? How come even lonely spirits, without guides, are drawn to the tunnel? I think the answer is relatively simple. First of all, the tunnel may have an electromagnetic pull to it, which pulls the spirit in, but also, if a spirit is lost and confused, finding out that they actually are dead, they want to go somewhere. When everything is dark around them or hazy at best, a tunnel with a bright light may seem like a good idea. The alternative seems less attractive. And when the spirit gets closer, she's sucked in like into a vacuum cleaner, which it basically is, a gigantic mega vacuum cleaner. And the rest goes by itself, and the spirit can only go along with the ride. The tunnel with the light is how the Sirians keep us trapped through the afterlife, until a new body is found that we can get recycled into. They know that, if they can only get us to enter the tunnel, they have us for yet another ride. There is no way back. Once in there, we are at their mercy. There is very little we can do. It's like being blown into a balloon, whereafter somebody ties the string around the opening. Whatever is in there stays in there until the Sirians, with help from technology, shoots us down into a new body. The existence in the afterlife. If we are to believe the 7,000 witnesses in Michael Norton's books, who from regression therapy were able to tell a similar story of what happens from when we die until we get recycled, is not necessarily negative. The great majority of case studies show that people have quite a good time seeing old familiar faces and having a chance to rest and feel healthy and at ease. If so, all is fine and dandy thus far. But those who take this route are definitely going to be recycled again, although there allegedly are for those who stay in the afterlife for quite some time, or so they think, because time is different there.
Now, from knowing what we know, we have three choices as I see it. The first one we have already discussed, but here they are, all three of them. 1. We go towards the light and into the tunnel and get trapped in the recycling process once more. 2. We avoid the light and the tunnel altogether and take a new body without going through the Sirian implant station in the between life area. 3. We turn our back to the light and hurry up heading in the opposite direction, out through a hole in the grid and escape all out into the universe. We covered number 1, so let's take a look at number 2. This option is of course available to us, and if a Sirian spirit guide is coming to guide us, we tell them we don't want to be part of their entrapment system anymore. The guide may be nice about it and try to manipulate us for a while, and with all this knowledge, we will think it's pretty transparent, I'm sure, but we persist. The guide will leave us alone, because they can't go against the law of free will or they'll be in deep trouble. They will let us go. Then, at our convenience, we take a new body and reincarnate again, this time with full memory of our past life, although not necessarily the ones before that, as these are hidden under veils of amnesia from previous visitation to the implant station. When we're born into baby bodies, memories will not return until we reach a certain age, I would think around 2 to 5 years old. Some suggest 12 years old, or during adolescence. The reason, perhaps, that we want to take this route is because we want to stay on Earth and be part of creating the new Earth and become guardians of the living library again. Things to look out for. First of all, when we choose to take a new body, we most probably have to fight off non-physical beings, who want the same body we do. Bodies are a scarcity, in spite of 7 billion of them on Earth. There are many non-physicals, who for different reasons want to experience the material worlds. When we go through the tunnel, we get help from the Sirians to make sure we get the body we are supposed to be shot into. Other aspirants are fought off beforehand. Now, when we're not within the system anymore, we have to do the job ourselves. Another thing to be aware of is that our new parents may not welcome our ability to remember our past existence and wave it off as fantasies. As we grow older, our friends, and the school system are going to do the same thing. In an environment where we are constantly invalidated for our past life memories and our relatively extraordinary knowledge, we may think we are the ones who are crazy and start believing what they're saying and begin to suppress our memories. This is a serious threat to ourselves, because if that happens, we may once again become trapped in the system. Most likely, however, if we are born without amnesia implants, sooner or later in life we are going to realize that what we are remembering is actually real, because we're going to be drawn towards information which helps us revalidate who we are. Lastly, we have the option to find a hole in the grid and just disappear. No one is likely going to stop you, but if they do, it will most possibly again be in form of spirit guides, or even dead relatives, who are going to tell you how wonderful it is in the afterlife. Just because it comes from someone we have loved, and still love, it could be hard to resist, but then we need to keep in mind what we know. Once we are outside the grid, we are going to see the universe in a new light, free to explore the different dimensions, both within the 4% and the Ka. By just thinking a thought, we can move from one place, or dimension, to another. A star lane will take us to where we want to go. Things to look out for. The only problem I know of when choosing this option is when we run into other star beings. At a first glance, it may be hard to know if they are benevolent or not, although they all have a signature to them which will tell us if we're perceptive enough, which we should be when out of the trap system, I would think. They may be convincing and act friendly, when in fact they are anything but. Best way to find out is to ask if they are of the light and if they endorse the divine feminine. If they say yes, we should be relatively safe. If we're still uncertain, we can either ask them more questions, or just say we want to be left alone, until a new opportunity shows up when meeting other star beings. We have to remember to respect other civilizations, so if we explore a planet, we need to leave the beings there alone so they can evolve undisrupted, and if the civilization is more advanced, ask for permission to get to know them. If they're friendly, this should not be much of a problem. Time is irrelevant when we travel the stars, so we are not limited by lifetimes. We can browse as long as we want, until we find a place that can be our new home and settle down there. These two last options are the ones I see can help us to get out of the Sirian control system after we have experienced body death. In the meantime, while still in a body here on Earth, and to help raising the vibrations of self and others, a good idea is to disagree being part of the system as much as possible, and perhaps join others who are like-minded. Keep in mind that the solutions are often simple, so simple that we haven't thought about them. Isn't that how life is, after all? What I have suggested here doesn't require more than a decision and an action on our part, and we will be our own masters. It's just a matter of taking the step and do it. All it takes is courage, and the realization that nothing bad will happen if we break our patterns. After all, it's the system which has taught us that it's dangerous to think and act on our own. We just need to understand that it's all a lie in order to keep us trapped. It's called mind games.